Welcome to the 700 Club Canada. I'm Brian Warren.
And I'm Laura-Lynn Thomson. It's great to be with you.
It really is. Today, we are privileged to have author Rachel Starr with us in studio to discuss her inspirational book, Fearless.
What a book. Fearless is her personal journey about fighting fear and anxiety after her heart stopped beating. She'll share her story of what's been called her sudden cardiac death.
Rachel is truly a fighter and an inspiration to all who hear her story.
And in our first story, Kyle Maynard is also an inspiration to all who know him. He's a champion wrestler and jiu-jitsu athlete, and he was also born without arms or legs.
Wow, that is amazing. Let's take a look.
Kyle Maynard is tough, real tough. He's a champion wrestler. He studied Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He can bench 420 pounds. And every day, he conquers the impossible.
Emerson said, "Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail."
Kyle began leaving a new trail the moment he entered the world. He was born without arms or legs, the result of a rare condition known as congenital amputation.
Yeah, my parents, they had just normal pregnancy. They went and saw the ultrasounds, and the doctor saw that there was really nothing out of the ordinary. So they really had no idea that anything was going to happen, that I'd be born different until I was.
Normally, congenital amputation only affects a finger or a toe. In this case, Kyle was left with no limbs, and his parents were left with questions on how to raise their child.
What really blows me away is the decisions that my mom and dad made. They had to make when they were super young. My mom, she was more of like the nurturing type and wanting to help me with stuff and help me figure out how to go and do things and didn't want to see me struggle. My dad realized that by helping me do everything wasn't going to be the best solution to the problem. I'd say in learning how to eat, he's got to figure out how to eat on his own or starve.
As you can imagine, it wasn't easy, but Kyle learned the basics. And soon, he wasn't just able to do the things others could do, he was doing them better.
My mom tells a story about when I got in the closet and ripped all the clothes off the rack, and she was partially a little ticked off at me, but partially wow, this is cool, you did that.
By the time he reached middle school, Kyle wanted to take it up a notch. One day he told his mom he wanted to go out for the football team. His mom called the coach, and the coach said sure.
So I was a nose guard playing in the middle. I thought I was going to be the quarterback, but that was a whole other story. I remember the very first football game that I played in, and one of the first plays that they ran was coming right up the middle. And I remember that moment the way I'd tackle people is taking my helmet and smashing it into their legs as hard as I could. In that moment, it was like I had found an 11-year-old, version of purpose in life.
At the time, Kyle was just a 6th grade kid who had to work twice as hard to get half as far. His parents, who were Christians, had assured him that there was a grand plan for his life. Now, Kyle understood. His goal? See the impossible, beat the impossible.
And I definitely, was at a pretty big depth of despair at 10 years old and really had a lot of fear over what the future was going to be. And I was definitely at a point where I'd lost a lot of hope, just didn't see a reason even to go on. And I really think that making my first tackle in football might have been what, nearly saved my life.
That moment fueled a competitive nature inside Kyle. So after football, he took up wrestling. And soon he was winning matches. And it wasn't long before the no-legged man winning the butt-kicking contests became a media sensation. He wrote a book called No Excuses. He also became a popular motivational speaker and made dozens of TV appearances.
He is one of the most inspiring young men you will ever hear about.
He's strong, too, I might add.
Kyle Maynard is tough. He has to be. He has no arms or legs, but he makes up for that with an indomitable spirit, one buoyed by a faith in Christ.
Part of Christ's message was teaching us so that we could go and do way more than we think that we can. Telling a mountain to move from here to here and it'll do it, right? And we can go and think of that like figuratively, like, oh, okay, yeah, it's just a saying, whatever. But like, no, I mean, like, what if that's the literal truth, and we're just sort of like, oh, okay, it's just a saying. We're so quick to go and dismiss the fact that we're able to go and do these amazing things too. And I think that being connected to something bigger than ourselves is the only way to reach that place.
Now, normally, this is where a story ends. You have your hero, faces the great obstacle, overcomes it, and lives happily ever after. But in Kyle's case, this is where his story really begins.
My message is a pretty simple one.
After high school, Kyle went on the speaking circuit. But before long, Kyle considered doing something he'd never really done before. Quit.
I put on like 25, 30 pounds in like a 3 or 4 month book tour. It was just this period of time where I was just like, blah. People would say to me after a speech that my story was inspiring and all that. I know that their intent was that it would make me feel good, but a lot of times it didn't. You know, a lot of times it just made me feel different.
During this time, Kyle came up with a nickname for himself, the Depressed Motivational Speaker.
I was alone. You know, I would be traveling, I'd be up in a hotel room by myself. You know, I was 19 years old, 20 years old. I'm speaking on stage with senators and presidents and like, you know, for Fortune 500 companies. And it's like, who am I to go and tell you guys how to run your business? Like, it was crazy. And I think a big part of it was I did not feel like authentic with the message that I was sharing. I didn't feel like I was actually living the message that I was talking about.
And then, a turning point. A chance meeting at an airport with 2 soldiers who said they saw Kyle on TV and were inspired by his life.
You know, I think that made a huge difference in learning to accept that, embrace it, and wanting to be anything that I do, put my feet into, be the best in the world that I can be. You know, I'm competitive, and I think that was a big game changer for me.
In 2011, Kyle met a Gold Star mother. Her son, Corey Johnson, had been killed in Afghanistan earlier that year. She told Kyle that her son had always wanted to travel and see Mount Kilimanjaro. And soon, Kyle had a new challenge.
I told my friend that night, I'm gonna climb Mount Kilimanjaro. She was like, you're crazy. Like, how do you think you're gonna go and do Kilimanjaro? And I told her, I don't know, but we'll figure it out.
Kilimanjaro has been called the House of God. It's so high that climbers will pass through 5 ecological zones before getting to the summit. Temperatures range from 80 degrees at the base to minus 15 degrees at the top. It's a taxing climb for anyone, but Kyle wouldn't back down.
I've got some really amazing people in my life that I've been so fortunate to have, that when I say something crazy like that, instead of them telling me, oh, you're crazy, you're not gonna go and do it, most of them are like, wow, that's cool. How can I help? I've got friends that made my gear out of duct tape and duct tape bath towels on the ends of my arms and my feet. I couldn't just go to like the hiking store and like get like a pair of hiking shoes. Like we had to come up with a whole new system.
Now, there are risks to the climb. The higher you go, the less oxygen there is to breathe.
Doing great.
The colder it gets, the greater the risk for frostbite. Not to mention the dust or the dry rocks. Kyle was gonna deal with this for 30 miles, crawling every inch of the way.
Most times my face is in the dirt, 6 inches off the ground. Nobody really told me that I shouldn't bear crawl on my elbows and knees for 30 miles before I went. My shoulders and back and hip were shot. My arms, like the swelling in my arms was really intense. So it's this total dichotomy going on of some moments of just intense suffering, like, why am I here? Why did I do this? To other moments of like, wow, this is really cool. This is really beautiful, and connecting to that reason of just why I was there in the first place.
After a grueling journey, Kyle was near the top. But the important thing wasn't just how close he was to the summit. It was how far he'd already come.
I'm sitting on ice and I'm looking back and I could see the entire trail that we'd come up. And it was the wildest thing to go and see. The trail just went on and on and on forever, like out of sight. And I was like, holy cow, like, wow, like we actually went that far. Like, it's amazing.
Hemingway once wrote, all he could see, as wide as the world, was the square top of Kilimanjaro. And then, he knew that there was where he was going. Kyle Maynard was there, 19,000 feet in the air, as the first quadruple amputee to summit the mountain. And once again, he beat the impossible.
I held it together at the top until I called my mom and she started crying. and I just broke. And I started crying after that too. And a couple moments after that, I got to pay tribute to a fallen soldier. You know, in those really tough moments where I was feeling sorry for myself and ready to quit, a lot of it was thinking, man, he's never gonna get this chance to be here and go and climb this mountain. And it really kept me going. It just absolutely was the greatest honor of my life.
Kyle returned home and earned an ESPY award for his efforts. He also came back with a different perspective. And now, he's not just working to conquer the impossible, he's helping others do the same.
And I've learned whatever gifts that we've been giving, like, you gotta go and share it. And sometimes that means doing things that are uncomfortable, that every fiber in your body doesn't want you to do. Then you gotta do it anyway. When I was younger, I did pray a lot that, like, I would just wake up and have arms and legs. Now I think those prayers have been answered in a totally different way, in a way that I couldn't have ever imagined before. It's come in the form of the learning that I've gotten to have, and that can transcend into anything. Now there's nothing in the world that you could offer me to have me live my life again differently. I feel like it's the biggest blessing I've ever received, being born the way that I was.
Wow, what a powerful, powerful story.
Oh, my goodness.
Kyle Maynard climbing Kilimanjaro with
unstoppable.
no line. Hey, if you identify with Kyle and you'd like to be a part of something big, we're excited to offer you our latest premium called Ask Anything.
This DVD presents godly counsel on topics like how to be forgiven, suicide, developing spiritual disciplines, and how to achieve success.
And all you need to do is become a monthly 700 Club Canada partner.
It's our gift to you for joining. If you've got questions and you don't know where or how to find the answers, get Ask Anything.
You will definitely find the wisdom and counsel that you need to meet the challenges you face.
If you call, we'll send it to you immediately, 1-855-759-0700.
Kyle's testimony shows us there are no limits. And I
Yes.
knew when he lost his sense of purpose and he just got tired, he said,
Right.
it was that mom of that soldier that came and sparked that fire in his belly.
Yeah.
And he was just crawling about this high off the ground.
Right.
And I know his shoulders would toast after
I
that.
couldn't do it, even with arms and legs. You
Yeah.
know, it's amazing. Which just goes to show that sometimes we have these preconceptions of what we think success looks like.
Yes.
You know, what our purpose is based on what we think we have as assets.
Yes.
And, you know, when he says, I used to pray for arms and legs, and now
Yeah.
he's found out that's not really the key to his happiness and to his joy, but rather knowing God.
And also, I wrote down when I was listening, because I usually write. I can't stop writing when I see these things. And he said that what I asked God before, I'm glad he never gave that to me. And you know,
right.
many times we just need to be thankful with what we have.
Absolutely. Well, you know, Brenda Sipes-Wade experienced a miraculous healing.
If you need a healing, it can happen for you too.
Take a look.
On July 15th, 2015, Brenda Sipes-Wade was getting on the interstate on-ramp to go home when she saw the cars in front of her had stopped.
I put on my brakes real quick, and I had no brakes. I thought, oh, I'm going to crash into him, and I did. I totaled my car, and the next thing I remember, because I did hit my head against the steering wheel, it's a guy helping me out of the car to get into an ambulance. A couple minutes after that till my neck really started hurting.
After an MRI and x-rays confirmed she had no broken bones, her emergency room doctors gave her a neck brace and sent her home. Afterwards, she was in constant pain.
That's the only way I could keep from the headache and the back of the neck hurting was wearing the neck brace. I finally got it situated when I went to bed at night to where I could wear the neck brace while I was in bed.
For 2 months, she went to her chiropractor 3 times a week, but the pain would not go away.
It's the simplest of things. Hardwood floors, sweeping. So I would say anything involving your shoulders, movement of your head, neck, and shoulders that I had difficulty with.
On September 4th, she was at home, watching the 700 Club.
They were doing prayer, and I was sitting back over here in my recliner, and I had my hand like this on my neck because it was really bothering me. He's had a word of knowledge. He said,
There's someone you're laying your right hand on the back of your neck. You've had a severe injury to the right side. Very difficult for you to turn your neck. You have recurring headaches from it, recurring pain shooting down into your right shoulder. God's healed you.
it described exactly how I felt and where I had my hand on my neck and so forth. And I said, that's for me, Lord. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I started just shaking my head around, up and down, every direction.
He just set you free from that. Just begin to move your neck. Do what you couldn't do before. Stand up, move your shoulder, move your neck all the way around. Realize there's no more pain. You have been set free.
2 weeks later, her doctor called her with the results from a follow-up MRI.
They say your surgery was successful. And I said, you know, I did not have surgery. I've not had surgery on my neck. He said, well, you had a surgeon that's not of this earth. I said, you're right, you're right. I said, I knew I was healed.
Now she's back to doing her needlepoint and other hobbies she couldn't do before.
It was definitely a miracle, definitely a miracle. I mean, you know, it just was a miracle. Simple as that. When it shows you've had surgery and you haven't, it was all healed. It was just so miraculous. It really was.
I love that. You had a surgeon, but not of this world. And it is definitely a miracle. You know, Brenda believed that she could be healed. And I believe that God wants to do that in your life in the early part of this year. I feel like God is saying, Matthew 7:7, ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be open. Not just asking once, keep asking God. I feel like today somebody's been battling with some migraines. I don't know who you are, and it's almost like in the back of your head and you just haven't had any peace. God is lifting that right now. I want to pray with you and I want to pray for you. Do you believe that you can be healed? That's my only question. If the answer is yes, receive this prayer and then call the number on the screen because I want to get something into your hands. It doesn't cost you anything. 1-855-759-0700. All you have to do is request it. That's why we're here at the 700 Club Canada. We want to pray with you and for you. We believe that the revival is taking place in Canada and Jesus speaks today. Do you believe you can be healed? If the answer is yes, Father, I thank you that you have already answered that prayer. Your word says in 1 Peter that by your stripes we were healed. So I pray now that by the blood of Jesus and the finished work of the cross for that deliverance from those migraines and also, Lord, that malady in Jesus' name. Amen. If that's you and you claim it, say, Pastor B, you were talking to me, you were reading my mail. Call the number on the screen. After the break, Laura-Lynn sits down with author Rachel Starr to discuss her book, Fearless. You don't want to miss it.
I married the wrong man. Am I stuck forever in this hopeless nightmare? What am I gonna do?
Thanks for your hard work.
I've got to stop drinking. But how do I stop? How can I break this addiction?
So I cheated and we won. There are a lot of sins worse than that, right? I mean, it's not like I killed somebody.
Our minds are filled with hard questions, situations, and challenges that come at us every day. Where do we go for answers? And who can we ask? In Pat Robertson's latest teaching, Ask Anything, you'll get biblical answers to life's toughest questions. Get Ask Anything and get the answers you need today.
Welcome back. It's my extreme honor to interview a lovely young woman, Rachel Starr Thomson. She is the co-author of a book called Fearless, one of my favorite topics. And Rachel, it's great to have you on the set. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's great to be here.
There's a great quote in the beginning of the book from Winston Churchill. Fear is a reaction and courage is a decision.
Absolutely.
And you've basically, this topic has been so intense, you've actually written a book about being fearless.
Yeah.
How did that happen for you?
You know, it's a topic that is really timely right now. And for me personally, it's become a bigger thing in my life. I'm a naturally kind of timid, cautious person, and
so
as long as I've known the Lord,
for you.
No,
Yeah.
and as long as I've known God, He's been like pushing me out further than I want to go.
Yes.
But really, for me, the story that I share in the book is back in 2014, I had a sudden and still unexplained cardiac arrest. So I just literally, what's on my medical records is sudden cardiac death.
Wow.
And so I just actually was technically dead for 12 minutes. Which again, it came out of nowhere. And
Where were you?
I was in a Canadian Tire parking lot.
Wow. And so it hit you, and what happened to your body?
I just collapsed in the parking lot. My sister was with me, so she called an ambulance. And actually, God is incredible. So as I was collapsing, a cardiac nurse was pulling into the parking lot.
Wow.
Which she worked on the floor where I ended up being for a couple weeks. And she came in and she said, I wasn't going to Canadian Tire. I was just driving by, and I don't know why I pulled in.
So you're under cardiac arrest, and God sends a cardiac nurse right to where you are.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she started CPR immediately, which is the only reason I don't have brain damage, because 12 minutes is a long time to be gone.
Right.
But she kept oxygen coming the whole time until the ambulance could get there. So, and then they defibrillated, and I came back and woke up in the hospital about 24 hours later.
How did that incident shape the book, Fearless?
You know, it really highlighted the importance of living your whole life for the Lord. Because the most profound thing about that experience for me was waking up and realizing I have no regret. I have no regret. And I don't live a conventional life. And a lot of people would look at me, I'm not married, I don't have kids, I don't have a normal career. It's kind of been just this walk with God on a faith path all these years. And on paper, my life doesn't look like it has a lot of value even. So to be able to wake up and say, wow, like every choice has been worth it.
Yeah, so you were happy with the way that you had spent your life, and you realized this wasn't my time to go, but when it is my time to go, you wanted that same feeling. I don't want to have regrets.
That's absolutely
right. And did you think you became more fearless after this happened?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. So then the event that happened that really kind of brought it all to a head for me was just last summer. And I was out for a jog. And so after this event, I have an implanted pacemaker and defibrillator.
After what happened?
So, yes.
In 2014.
In 2014. Because the doctor said, we don't know what caused it. So
we don't want to
We don't know if it will ever happen again. So we're just going to put in a defibrillator in case. Well, the problem was I was out jogging and it misread my heart rate and thought I had a bad heart rhythm. And so it went off. As I was out, so it knocked me right off my feet. I wasn't sure what had happened at first.
What happens when it goes off?
You get about 700 or 800 volts of electricity shooting through you, so it feels a little like having a heart attack.
Right. How many times?
9 times in a row. As I was trying to get back to the house.
Wow.
So I was crawling home. On the side of the road, and I didn't know if it would stop, and I didn't know if I was having a heart attack or a cardiac arrest. I didn't know what was happening. And the cardiac arrest itself was not traumatic. The defibrillator going off mistakenly was extremely traumatic. And so that's kind of been this daily walk of, you know, if I get the hiccups, it's terrifying. Because it's this unexpected jolt.
You're worried about if that'll set. Is there a defect of any kind that they've checked out to see if...
They've looked at it and they've set the heart rate higher.
Yes.
So it shouldn't do that again. But it shouldn't have done it in the first place, right? So that's only so much comfort.
And so all of that, I can empathize that what it does is make life very precious, and knowing that you have that. And so you are a pretty fearless person, as the book points out. What is behind being a courageous woman in 2017?
Honestly, it's this very...
2018.
Yes,
I'm
it
sorry,
is.
we're in a new year. Okay.
It is. It's a good new year. It is the very, very ancient concepts of holiness, which really just having... I see holiness as a self-concept and as an identity of being set apart for God, and that's what life is about.
So are you saying that holiness leads to being courageous?
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. What is the correlation?
The correlation is, so holy, we get confused because we think it means a bunch of rules or how you're wearing your hair or your makeup or what you listen to and not.
Right.
And holiness really just means to be set apart for God. And when you're set apart for God, all of the circumstantial stuff in life that makes us afraid is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Because all that matters is walking with God and fearing the Lord and listening to His voice.
It makes sense, doesn't it? Because if you're walking in holiness before God, you're not dealing with shame from sin in your life.
Absolutely.
You're not dealing with sidetrack roads that you have to sort of, come back from. You're on a path that God has ordained, and you can be reckless in that regard for the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't mean, of course, that you don't make mistakes or that you don't get into sin and that you don't have to deal with those things. But it just gives you this very central goal, and so you just know, when you do take a wrong path, when you do get into sin, it's like, oh, that's not who I am, and that's not what my life is about. So I just need to deal with that and get it out of the way and go back to.
So if there's someone out there and they're a little bit like you, they feel a little bit timid, they don't know how to be courageous. You said that it is so important to be fearless at this time in history.
Absolutely.
How do they become that?
Oh, that's such a good question. It really is about faith, choosing faith over fear, which just means to believe God. And to me, the most central things in that are believing that when He says He loves you, He really does. When He says you're forgiven, you really are. When He says that He wants to walk with you, He really does. So all you need to do is wake up and believe that to the best of your ability and believe He's going to keep pulling you up and helping you.
And I suppose it really means being obedient. If He says to speak, something so simple, you are to speak.
Yeah.
Like it's down to that foundation level, isn't it? And it's not hard because we can speak, but we need to speak. And even speaking is an act of fearlessness in this day and age.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. This is your book, Fearless, and I certainly hope that you'll have a chance to get a copy of this and change your life. Thank you for sharing your story. It's beautiful. All right, thanks for joining us. I love spending this time with you. We'll see you next time.
To contact us, phone 1-855-759-0700. You can email us at cba@700club.ca.